Hi there, welcome to another episode of Soul Witty Love, where we explore that love is safe. If it's not safe, it's not love. This is part of our mini-series, Why You're Still Single, Even Though You're Awesome. We have Dr. Andrea with us today, beautiful Andrea, and today we're going to talk about emotional safety.
Yes.
Because again, love is safe. If it's not safe, it's not love. So I created a pretty awesome checklist. I call it the Happy Relationship Checklist. So if you want, you can download it. We'll put the link below. Happy Relationship Checklist. my French tongue. happyrelationshipchecklist.com. And there's one for singles and one for couples. And the first point to have a consciously loving relationship is be with someone who wants to be with you.
Yes.
When you start dating someone and they are aloof, or they tell you, I'm not ready for a relationship, it's not my time, but you find them really sexy. There's something about them that makes them even more desirable to you because they're telling you they're not ready. I'm telling you, if someone doesn't show interest in you the way you show interest in them, put a big X right away. Do not go there because you are about to create an addiction. Mm-hmm. I have seen this over and over again. Like I had a client, beautiful, good-hearted woman from Montreal, like really cool, designer and everything. And she met a guy like this, and she met him, and he told her he was not ready. But then it becomes this addiction to try to get him to change his mind so that she could prove to herself that she's worthy of love. Wow. She was not eating. She was so distraught. She was obsessing about that. Her business was suffering just because of that. And have you ever had this experience where you were infatuated with someone who was not responding to you?
Not in that way, but yeah. I mean, I waited for the change to happen, but it never did. Until I changed.
It's funny,
yeah. Nothing happened until I made that change, right?
And it's really, you can look at it, it's kind of cool. It's like playing with energy. You can never change another person, but if you are in a relationship, like a particle and its anti-particle, when you change a particle, if there's a bond, the antiparticle will shift. That's why in an earlier segment I was talking about my infatuation with this guy, and like I was so infatuated with him that I wanted him too much. That was not love. Even though it feels like, oh, I'm loving him, that's not love. Change that word. Like when you want someone really badly and they run away from you, you're not loving that person. It's too much pressure on that poor person. It's not good. And so, but when I was shifting myself and pulling away, then he would come after me. So emotional safety is created when first you find someone who wants to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
Secure. The number 2 thing to do is make sure that this person, before you put your heart on a silver platter to them, that they're a good person. They can be a good friend. So make sure they have a track record of being a good friend. Like, how do they speak about their exes? Is it always everybody else's fault? They don't take any responsibilities? Or, you can watch, like, when they're going to get stuff, are they there for their friends or their family, or do they run away? Because it is your utmost responsibility to not give your heart on a silver platter before you know this person. Mm-hmm. And often we jump in, if we've been single for a long time, and especially if we feel poorly about a part of ourselves, then this person looks so good, and we already see ourselves moving in together, getting married or whatever. It's like we're walking into the sunset before making sure that this person is a good person. Have you ever had the experience of meeting someone at first they look good, but then they were bad?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess it's quite often because this is back in the day, but you fall in love with the potential of who they are.
Exactly. The
seeing
potential.
yeah,
Exactly.
seeing the actions versus what they're saying a lot of times too. That's something too. Like, oh, look, they're saying all these beautiful things, but it's like, but their actions are not in alignment. So that's another thing.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I wrote this checklist is it came from my experience, but also working with lots of clients, because I was in need. I had been in a long distance relationship with a man, and we never got to see each other 5 days a week for 6 years. And so I was craving romance. So then I meet this really sexy, handsome guy. You know, he's suave and he's got great taste and all that stuff. Great lover, everything. And you know, he's romantic, doing all the things that you think is a romantic thing. And then, after a while, I started to see that he was, you know, starting to pick at me, trying to take me down, trying to manipulate me into making me feel that I was lucky to be with him. Wow. And that's called a narcissist. And if you go online and you look on YouTube videos of people warning you about narcissists, this is what they're talking about. Thank goodness I had, you know, enough of a connection to my own heart, because what ends up happening is that when you disconnect from your heart, from your compass, then you put your compass into somebody else's being. And now, because if you're a good person and they tell you something, you think about it, and you're like, maybe they're right, maybe, you know. For example, the guy lived in a nice house, but there was an open concept house. And he had 3 kids, 3 cats, a dog, and all of these beings, and I was single, and I like my peace and tranquility. And he was telling me, oh, but if you were loving, this would not make any difference to you. You wouldn't even think about it. It's like, really? And I'm thinking, well, maybe he's right. And then I'm starting to let go of my needs to fulfill his needs. And after a while, I started to see like, this guy is not a good friend, because every time I would try to bring a conversation to bring us together, poof, we would just explode. It's like, so after a while I was smarter, and that's why I put that one. Like, make sure that before you give your heart on a silver platter, that you know this person. And you're gonna know them even more when you see how they behave with their own friends or their own family. And this guy didn't have friends, so that should have been a big warning.
I've seen that. Actually, the guys that I was infatuated with, they also did not have good friends. Crazy.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. And so it was good because I learned a lot from that. I learned that, and this is how that's why he's actually a big reason for this podcast, because I've seen this happen so many times with people getting totally brokenhearted because they went too quickly. They didn't spend the time to see, like, is this person good enough for me? And it also goes with the third point of the happy relationship checklist is, do we share similar core values?
That's key.
Because no matter how good a person smells or how handsome or beautiful they are, the style they've got, if you want 10 kids and they don't want any kids, if you love to learn and grow and they feel threatened when you do this, like, what's going to happen? How are you going to be able, like, after a while, love is not going to be enough. Mm-hmm. So that's when, again, it's not going to last, and now you're going to be afraid of relationship. The number 4 one is understand that all relationship that face challenges. Why? Because You yourself, within yourself, some days, you feel connected to yourself. Sometimes you're not so connected and you go through highs and lows. So the only thing that happens when you're in a relationship is you double the lows and you double the highs. So it's important to understand that our relationship face challenges, but when you work through them consciously, you actually bring more love. It's actually an amazing, that's when you leave the realm of infatuation for true love. And number 5, a good sexual connection, whatever that means for you. Because I've had couples who are asexual, and that was fine for them because both of them were. And if 2 beings are really sexual, that's great. If one person is sexual and the other one is not, that often creates trauma. The one who's not sexual is not any better than the one who's over-sexual. Neither one of them is good or bad. It's about finding a middle for both of the people in the couple. So when you have these 5 points, you're going to be pretty safe. After that, the only thing that's going to make it work is number 4, which is, committing to making it work. Like if you have a child who's a troubled child, you don't just dismiss them, you love them and you find ways of making it work. So if you have those 5 points and they're, solid, and all of a sudden you're going through a challenging period, what you need to do is you actually just need to commit doing the inner work, doing the subconscious work, doing the conscious work, returning to being grateful for each other, finding ways of creating intimacy. So, anything else you want to add on that?
No, I think compatibility is a big part of that. And I think when we get infatuated, we forget that compatibility is actually really important. Because when you're infatuated, you don't even think about how compatible you are.
No, yeah.
Right? And all those 5 things on the list add to that compatibility. Look at like the core values, for instance.
Yeah, and that's why when you're 20, you don't even know your core values. So how are you going to find someone who match your core values?
Yeah.
So this is it for this episode of Love is Safe. If it's not safe, it's not love. If you enjoyed it, please like it, subscribe, and share it with people who could benefit from it. Bye for now.